Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is William White. I'm the Field Marketing Specialist for ARDEX Tile and Stone. Today we're going to be going over ARDEX's exterior tile installation systems. Joining me today, I have Mr. Mark Panine. He's the head of technical services for ARDEX's Tile and Stone division, as well as my counterpart, Mr. Tim Aheimer. So we're going to be going through several installations for you of a couple different systems that we have. We're going to be starting out with the Watech tile installation system. So the first thing about the Watech system, or any of our systems, is going to be the edge profile that we have. So this is a very unique edge profile, and I'll hold this one up so you can kind of see it. You'll notice that it has perforations all the way around the perimeter. Now that does a couple things for us. One, it allows water to be managed through our system and then be evacuated out the edge. Of course, we want to have proper pitch to our substrate so that we can evacuate that water. The second thing that these perforations do is they actually let air up into the assembly so that it completely dries out. So that's what we're really doing, is we're wanting to keep our assembly dry. How we do that is we use a technology called capillary passive drainage. So that means water flows through it, but it doesn't wick back up. So the first step would be to install our profiles, which Tim has already done here. The next thing we do is we install this profile tape. So this profile tape, it's called US 420. It goes down. Now, depending on if we're over occupied space or not, we're going to have a primary roofing membrane if we're over occupied space. If we're not over occupied space, we can do our ARDEX TLT membrane. We're going to assume that this is a elevated slab with non-occupied space. So once we've got that down, the next step is to add our perimeter isolation tape. This is UD 146. What our perimeter isolation tape does is it allows for expansion at any stationary objects, such as a wall, a post, or a column. Maybe you have a built-in barbecue, something that's stationary, and we want to allow for proper expansion around everything that's stationary. The cool thing about the UD 146 is it has a self-adhesive strip, so you saw how quick and easy that went down. They just peeled the strip off of there and tape it to the surface. The next thing we have is our Watech UE 150 mat. So this is our drainage mat, and it comes in 1 meter by 2 meter sheets. So you can see it was folded there. All we have to do is just lay that down. So this is a 100% uncoupling or 100% floating installation. The mat is not glued down to the substrate, and what that does is it allows for the entire assembly to expand and contract. So once Tim has the mat down, he's going to go ahead and start keying in his thin set. So you'll notice that our membrane has this blue scrim on top. What this blue scrim does is, as Tim keys thin set into that, it acts like rebar in our entire structure and gives it strength. Because this is a floating installation, we still need it to be strong. So Tim is keying in our substrate just as we would properly. He's using ARDEX X90 outdoor thin set. The advantage to ARDEX X90 outdoor thin set, it's in the name. It's designed for exterior outdoor applications. X90 allows us the maximum in freeze-thaw stability. We went 150 times the ANSI standard on the freeze-thaw stability of X90. Another advantage to X90 is that we can work in lower temperatures. Remember, we're outside, so sometimes we don't always have warm weather. X90 can actually be used in temperatures as low as 40 degrees and it will still cure. Another awesome advantage of X90, it can receive driving rain in as little as 2 hours. So I live in Portland, Oregon. The day may start out beautiful, the clouds can roll in, and in a couple hours we can have rain. With X90, I don't have to worry about that, and I don't have to worry about losing the bond of my thin set mortar. So as you can see, Tim's just applying his mortar, combing it out. Of course, with every exterior installation, we're always looking for a minimum of 95% coverage. So Tim is combing the substrate, and then he's flat back troweling his tile just to ensure that he achieves that proper coverage rate. What I like about the Watech system that he's showing here is this system is the most similar to setting tile indoors, and we can go ahead and set tile outdoors. I like it because we're using a standard 3/8 inch porcelain tile. As long as it's exterior rated, we can use it. So we can have that indoor-outdoor concept. We can run the same tile indoors as we do outdoors. Tim's gonna go ahead and throw down a couple more tiles here. Yeah. Alrighty, Tim's gonna finish that one up. We're gonna switch gears and we're gonna go over here while Tim finishes up, and we're gonna talk about the ARDEX Terramax system. So switching to a different system here. Now, we have the same profiles in play. The same tape was down. Now we're using a slightly different drainage membrane. This is called the UE190 drainage membrane. This one comes in a roll. We still are gonna use the UD146 that Mark is applying now. You'll notice that this one is going on top of that drainage membrane. Again, it's got that self-adhesive strip. Just press it down into place. Now what's really unique about the Terramax system that Mark is showing us here is this is designed for 2 cm porcelain pavers and 3 cm natural stone. What Mark is going to do is he's going to actually create cement pedestals. He's using our X32 mortar. So X32 is a thin to thick mortar. This can be built up as thick as 1.25 inches per single application. So this can go very, very thick. Mark is simply flat back troweling the back of his tile to achieve full coverage. And then he's going to create these cement pedestals on his drainage membrane. Now, of course, with any sort of pedestal type installation, we want to make sure that our material that's being used is approved for a pedestal installation. So the manufacturer of the pedestal or of the paver is going to determine that. So Mark's just keying in a little bit of that X32, giving us a couple of spots there. And now he's going to go ahead and do some buildups or pillars of X32. The advantage of this system over a plastic pedestal system is we can go a little bit lower. We're still incorporating that drainage membrane in there. And this also allows for the adjustment if we have, say, natural stone that has some irregularity to it or some differences in height. We can actually accommodate some of those differences. So once Mark has his pillars made, looks like he's pretty good to go here. He's got the back of his tile already troweled out, flat back troweled. And now he's just gonna pick up that paver and place it into position. Just like that. So now addressing the joints on these two systems. While Mark finishes up this one, we'll touch on the Watech system for a second. With the Watech system, we actually have a couple different options for our grouting or filling our joints. If we have a straight layout, which is what Tim has installed here, as long as our tiles are less than 16 inches, we can use our standard ARDEX FL grout or ARDEX WA epoxy grout. If our tiles are bigger than 16 inches, or if there's any sort of pattern like an offset or herringbone or something like that, we're going to use the ARDEX SX silicone sealant in all of the joints. So that SX sealant, what that does is basically every single joint becomes an expansion joint, allowing the entire assembly to move a little bit. Now, with our Terramax installation, for our joints here, we have two options. One, we can leave them open like you would typically do in a pedestal application, or we can also fill those joints with the ARDEX SX sealant and go ahead and have a closed joint installation. So we have a couple options on both of these, depending on the look that you're going for. So we have a third system. Our third system is the ARDEX TSL pedestals. Now I really like our TSL pedestal because it has some unique features built into it. There's no tooling required. We have our height adjustment. All we have to do is just spin this around. We have 5 different sizes from extra small up to the large. We also do have height adapters, so we can build this up and use them on any of our height pedestals to create any height combination. And also we have this sound clack pad built in here, because sometimes in a pedestal installation, when you step on it, the paver may move a little bit, and this actually reduces that clack or the decibel that you would hear below. Now another really unique feature is we have this pivoting head. Can you guys see that? How it rocks back and forth? Now typically we're gonna have some pitch in the substrate, but we still want our top surface flat, so we can adjust for that with this auto kind of adjusting head up to 9 degrees of fall and still have a flat installation. Now on our TSL pedestal application, we do have a couple options for our joints as well. We can use the ARDEX SX once again, just like our Terramax installation, or we can leave the joints open like you typically would with most pedestal installations. Generally speaking, again, the material has to be approved for a pedestal, so we want to make sure that our 2cm paver or 3cm natural stone is approved for that application. And as kind of a rough calculator, you can figure about a pedestal per square foot on the job. If you're just needing a rough calculation, factor about 1 pedestal per square foot, and that'll give you a close count for when you're estimating a project. Now we do have a third system available. That's called the ARDEX Pro Drain system. We have some examples of that one. It is a thick bed system using the ARDEX A14 drainage mortar. That system's a little heavy to drag over here, so if you swing by our booth, it's number 3634 underneath the glowing ARDEX cubes over there. You can check out that system as well. What's unique about it is it uses a drainage mortar bed, so about 2.5 inches thick. We can set natural stone or porcelain tiles on top of that in a wet set fashion and tamp them down into place. Again, really good when you have ungauged material. So we have 4 different systems. Depending on what you have on your particular job site, we can accommodate for different tiles, different job site conditions, and we have a perfect system for you. That'll kind of conclude our installation process. We'll open it up for any questions that you guys may have. Anyone got anything for us? What do you got? Really, really good question. So his question was, when we're using the silicone sealant, what is the life expectancy of that as long term? Did I get that correct? Okay. So with a silicone sealant, as like the NTCA that did their presentation prior to us, you do have to keep an eye on that. You're going to want to come back. I think personally that all exterior systems should have a maintenance schedule built into them. You will want to come back and inspect it. Typically, so I've got installations that are down now. I think my oldest one is six or 8 years right now, and I've been to the job annually. There's no deterioration of the silicone whatsoever. Now, of course, we are gonna, whether we hard grout it or we use the silicone, we're still gonna maintain those expansion joints per the TCNA EJ171 for exterior. So we are always going to have silicone present, and you do want to come in occasionally and check those out. Yep. Okay, so if our tiles are bigger than 16 inches, we're going to, his question is, what do we do when our tiles are bigger than 16 inches? Can we use a combination of both epoxy and the silicone? So what we want to do in that application, we actually want every single joint, because our tiles are bigger, we want every single joint to be an expansion joint on its own. So we're going to use silicone throughout the entire installation. Now, if our tiles are less than 16 inches, that's where we can use a combination of our standard FL grout or high performance FL grout or our WA epoxy, and then we're just going to recognize our expansion joints per the EJ171. Yeah, really good question. What do you have? What's the pot life of X90? So X90, while it is one of our most rapid thin sets, what's really cool is that we actually have 40 minutes to work with it. So, and it's, what I like about X90 is you could almost set your watch by it. And the cool thing is with all ARDEX products, if you notice that Mark, when he went to use the X32, he just ran his margin trowel through it and loosened it up a little bit. If you keep moving the material, it stays alive throughout that entire period. And we can retemper it, we can stick a drill in it, we just don't want to add any water to it. Didn't quite hear that one. Okay, so you're from Florida? All right, so do you want to use a rapid set in an exterior application, Florida in the middle of summer? And I'm seeing heads shaking in the crowd going, oh no. So we have a couple options. So one, we can always control our environment, right? So we can throw an easy up, we can provide our own shade, we can cool down our mixed water. That's gonna extend our pot life. Now for you guys in Florida, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, where it's getting pretty hot, I see Joe shaking his head, he's like, it gets hot. And your experience, so he says he did X90 Millis, what's that? It was difficult. So we do have an option for you. This is where you would want to get hold of your ARDEX representative. We do have a substitute. We can use ARDEX X78. Now our typical recommendation is going to be the X90, but in situations where you are hot and dry, where you don't have that pot life, we can use X78, and the cool thing about X78, it has a 4-hour pot life, so now we've got extended open time. So next time, switch to that one. Now we do want a JSR on that because we do want to track that project. Cool. Any other questions for us while we're wrapping up here? What you got, Joe? Yep. So Joe's question is, on exterior, I'm talking about caulking every joint with 100% silicone. Do we have to use a backer rod? Because typically in most applications, you'll use a backer rod so that the silicone doesn't fall down in there. So what's a little bit different about ARDEX SX is the Shore A hardness. It's a little bit stiffer. It's not as fluid as most silicones. And so we do not require, and keep in mind, normally we're going to be doing a smaller joint, 1/8 inch or so. If you're below an 1/8 inch, 3/16 right in there, no backer rods necessary. If you're doing a wider joint, say a 1/4 inch or bigger, one, you're gonna be using a whole lot of SX. But in that situation, I would recommend dropping in a backer rod. But for typical applications, we don't even need a backer rod for there. Yeah. Cool. Anything else for me before we wrap up? Alrighty. Well, I want to thank everyone for sitting through this. If you do have any questions, swing over to booth 3634. You can see the ARDEX glowing cubes there. We do have some other examples of our other installations that you can check out. Swing by and say hi. Thank you.